So, shameless plug first, new podcast in the description, finally. I talked about Ersan Ilyasova and Corey Brewer, those moves. But as for us, we have accomplished actually winning a game. That's a good thing, right? And then if we do the simulator for a little bit, you'll see that we actually win more games. Perhaps even a season's worth of games for us. No, we're not that bad. But we are actually pretty okay to start off the season here with a record of 6-5. So what is going on? Well, offensively, we are not that good. We're shooting a whole lot of three-pointers. That's a good thing. I like that. And then defensively, we are a mid-tier team. And I think a lot of that is to do with some of the defensive players we picked up. And I want to talk about our two star players a bit in this video. Mainly Devin Booker's playmaking, as he is at nearly 6 assists a game at the moment. He had himself a couple of good assist games, 7 assists against the Utah Jazz, another 7 spot against the Detroit Pistons here. Devin Booker maybe will probably never be like an actual point guard for us. Like I can just put him at the point guard position and call it a day just because, I don't know. In a world where I was playing every game, maybe, because then I could not have him defend the opposing point guard, but in the world of 2K, I don't think he can be defending the opposing point guard because I don't think he'll ever be good enough to do that. Whereas, if I was playing these, then I would just have him defend the worst of the, guys on the other team that he can stay in front of and all that. But that's not going to happen in a simulator. That's number one. Number two is, even with improvement, I don't know if he'll ever be a super high assist guy and someone who can really lead an offense like that, but of course you don't necessarily need to either, but I just think he's more of a natural too. That doesn't mean that he still can't make plays. You can kind of think of Devin Booker as like a Brandon Roy when it comes to how often he's going to handle the ball for us while still being the 2 guard, not technically the point guard. And there are definitely times when he will play the point guard position, especially at the end of games. And we're seeing, just the playmaking on display, so that's good. Now if we look at Michael Porter Jr., number 2 on the rookie ladder, nearly 16 points a game. This game against Utah, not the biggest scoring performance, but I did like his assists and rebounds. 6 boards and 5 assists, so I figure I would make that known. At one point, we will look to improve Porter's passing. It's not going to be for a while. This is Devin Booker's 3rd season, and we're now having him get into, making plays for others. His 3rd season or his 4th season, Devin Booker? I don't remember. But what I'm getting at is it's going to be a minute. Alright, so we're not going to be freaking out if Michael Porter is averaging, 1 or 2 assists a game for this year, next year, that sort of thing. But it's a good sign nonetheless. Now, if we get some of his more scoring performances against the Memphis Grizzlies, 18 or 19 points? I don't know, I can't see the thing. I do think the biggest strength of having him and Booker is just the stagger ability. We saw it in the game I played against the Kings. Luckily, we had ourselves a really bad opponent. If we faced someone who was actually good, then we probably would have lost. But still, we did get to see that if you just have one of those guys in the game at all times, it allows your offense to just maintain itself. Whereas before, if I took out Devin Booker, then I'd have to put out as much shooting as I possibly can to try to make up for the lost offense. And I don't have to worry about that as much with Michael Porter. This game here, Devin Booker really had a tough one. He was missing a lot of shots, but Porter was able to make up for that. And sure, we still lost the game, which it should be said, we're still going to lose a lot of games here. I'm not expecting us to make the playoffs, and I'm not expecting us to even be really in contention for the playoffs. But we should definitely win more than last year. But still, when Booker doesn't kill it in a game, to have Porter just be a really good other guy, that's good stuff. Now, if we look at the rest of the rookie ladder, Luka Doncic is ahead of our guy at the moment. Michael Porter is number 2, so that is good. And we are going to be looking at this all throughout the year, because if we can get Porter Jr. the Rookie of the Year, well, then we should definitely attempt it. Now, the difference here being that Luka Doncic might already be the primary dude for the Bulls. Maybe not the biggest scorer. You could picture Lauri Markkanen probably leading the team in scoring, or maybe LaVine. But in terms of who's the primary ball handler, I feel like Doncic could end up taking that away from Chris Dunn and Levine, whereas I can't picture Michael Porter Jr. becoming the dude we run the offense through over Devin Booker. At least not this season. If we fast forward a couple years, then maybe that's the case. But for this very season, I do think that could give Doncic a bid over MPJ. But we'll just have to see what happens there. Now, for the Orlando Magic, Colin Sexton is pretty close. I mean, his assists are higher and his points are in the same ballpark as Porter. Seems like Orlando finally has themselves a leader of an offense, somewhat, at least, with Sexton. Similar to Elfrid Payton in the sense of he's more about attacking the basket, but seems that Sexton is way better at creating separation between him and defenders, beating them off the dribble and all that. And similar to Doncic, I think Sexton will probably have more responsibilities than Michael Porter Jr. as a ball handler, and that means he could end up overtaking him for this Rookie of the Year bid. DeAndre Ayton's scoring is a little low. We do have to expect that he turns it on at some point in the year, even if it's not right now. So the Rookie of the Year competition is going to be pretty steep, but hopefully we can do what we can to have Michael Porter Jr. come out on top. If we look at the standings a little bit, I want to make note of the Lakers, who are currently the 3 seed, for having a very good defense, number 4 in the NBA. If we take a gander, well, we don't take a gander, but if you remember from the last episode, Paul George is their big acquisition that I gave them because he left OKC, and we all know he's going to the Lakers if he leaves the Thunder. So the young dudes with PG, wearing number 29, his Olympic number, is working out. Back to us, Patrick Beverley is shooting the lights out of the ball from 3 right now. A few games here, one against Miami, the Pistons, and in Memphis. This is pretty good stuff, and while I don't really expect him to maintain shooting this well from 3, just being someone that the defense has to care about is really good for us, because while Beverley, he's not going to play in the pick and roll too much and all that, but spacing's good stuff. You know, spacing turns guys like Luke Babbitt into like really valuable dudes, even if they might only finish with 6 or 7 points on a game. You know, like some of these games he's hitting multiple threes, but even when he doesn't, he's still a good thing. We get to Josh Jackson, not shooting very well from the field, but he's doing a lot of other things. 1 steal a game and nearly 1 block a game as well. Playing small forward and power forward off the bench. Playing around 25 to 27 minutes a game, I guess. He just kind of fills up the stat sheet, Josh Jackson. I mean, this game here against Utah, 5 rebounds, also 16 points. He did have the 4 turnovers, and I believe he's averaging 2 turnovers on the year. So we might have to ask him to do even less with the ball. I don't know. He seems to be a guy who ends up with a few more possessions a game than I expect him to, in terms of just having the ball in his hands, but I would say the positives are outweighing the negatives for Josh Jackson. We're going to look at another game he had against the San Antonio Spurs, where he had 2 steals, 1 block, an offensive rebound. He got to the free throw line at least once. He just does stuff, you know? Just the type of guy who, he's got like some Marcus Smart in him, where it's not always beautiful, but when he's out there, just good things seem to happen. So he's looking good, we're looking good. Once again, new podcast in the description, the Ilyasova and Corey Brewer signings, as well as my 5 favorite rap songs of all time.